Good afternoon and welcome to a rather obviously titled segment, In Conversation With. This segment is specially designed to showcase the backstories and the journeys of individuals who have made an impact in their fields of expertise. Luminary Learning Solutions crafted this segment to offer you the advantage of drawing inspiration for your own personal journey. Well, I'm Anton Thayalan, the Chief Evangelist and the host this hour, and I will take you through an hour of free-flowing discussion. For today's segment on In Conversation With, it is my privilege and honor to introduce Stef Du Plessis. He is an author, an international speaker, and an intervention leader, one of the most highly awarded and accredited professional speakers in the world. Notably, the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa has named its highest and most coveted award, the Stef Du Plessis Founders Award. Stef is a thought leader on employee engagement and workplace culture, with over 3,500 engagements in over 20 years of exposure, covering over 5 continents. CEOs trust him to improve their organizational results, first by helping them to get their people on board and on track, and then by giving them the insights and tools with which to crank up the way they do things. Stef is also the co-developer of the acclaimed UGR's concept, now in use by organizations in more than 50 countries, along with his business partner, the Australian-based Steve Simpson, who's at the cutting edge of organizational transformation. Well, good afternoon, Stef, and welcome to the show.
Anton, thank you. After an introduction like that, I feel so old. So many years, so many places. But yes, Steve and I have been at this for a while. Thanks for having us. As you know, we had a small studio glitch, which has just reappeared. I'm fixing it as we speak, and we are good to go. Thanks for that introduction. Let's get to it.
Well, I must say, so let me start by thanking you first and foremost for linking us with Steve last week. And the conversation with Steve gave us such a solid insight into UGR. And if anyone is curious to know what UGR is all about, or Unwritten Ground Rules are all about, the recording of that conversation is available on our YouTube channel. So while you are stopping by, don't forget to like and subscribe. So just a quick brief though, UGR or Unwritten Ground Rule has 2 components. There is the culture piece and then there is the engagement piece. So last week, Steve took us through UGR and the culture piece, and post that conversation. And Stef, I don't know whether you've already heard from him. We actually wrote a guru guide, a book on the unwritten ground rules and culture. And this week, we want to dive into the engagement or employee engagement piece of UGR. And maybe this will result in a book too. So just, as a kickoff to this conversation, Stef, let me start by asking you about employee engagement. Is it science or is it an art? How do you view employee engagement?
Anton, I'm actually going to go back one step before that and just touch on UGRs as a concept to contextualize where our conversation is going this afternoon. So those folk who have already watched my partner, Steve, my business partner, that UGR session, UGR's Unwritten Ground Rules, defined as people's perception of this is the way we do things around here. Those UGRs sound like this, for instance. Around here, the only time I get spoken to by the boss is when I do something wrong. Or they could sound like, around here, no use giving my opinion because nobody cares. Those unwritten ground rules become the fabric of the organization, the fabric of the culture. And as we all know, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So those unwritten ground rules become the determining factor in the success or failure of the organization or the team. There are also positive UGRs. They sound like this. For instance, around here, we truly care about one another. Or around here, if I don't know the answer to something, I know that help is on hand. These are manifestations of the way that people behave in their day-to-day jobs. These UGRs are never spoken about openly. People have to deduce them, and they see them from the behavior of other people. And because people want to fit in, they start emulating those behaviors, and that's how culture comes to pass. So, what Steve did some 20 years ago is created this concept called UGRs. And 25 years ago, at that time, I was a behavioralist. I was focusing on personal development, personal excellence, leadership development, team development. Steve and I met working for a shared client. I actually brought Steve in on the recommendation of another colleague to work with one of my clients. It went so well that Steve and I immediately teamed up after that. And for 20 years now, we've been in this partnership, bringing these two pieces to people. Like you said, employee engagement, which is built on the pillars of personal excellence, leadership and teamwork. And on the other hand, unwritten ground rules, improving the way we do things around here so that we can ramp up the execution of our strategic objectives and so that we can make this an even better place to work. So the UGR's concept is the machine with which organizations in some 50 countries have used UGRs to measure, understand, and improve their culture. But that doesn't happen without having engaged employees. And that's where this afternoon's conversation comes in. And you ask, is engagement a science or an art? And I'll say a little bit of both, which is the easy answer. But employee engagement has to sit on the proven behavioral insights that we have of why people do what they do, why we behave in certain ways, and what truly motivates and inspires us. And that's science. But the art of unleashing that in people, that has to be an art. And that art is called, I think, authentic leadership. And it is authentic leaders that can influence people to improve the way they behave. I might add this quickly before we take it further. Anton, according to the literature, there are 4 reasons why people change. A near-death experience, a life-changing event, a religious experience, or personal willpower. Now, those are the 4 reasons that they say cause people to change. I disagree with that list. I think, Anton, there is one reason that causes people to change. And here we speak about change in the context of becoming more engaged in the workplace, demonstrating excellence at work, at play, and in life. And there is one thing that causes people to change, I believe, personal willpower, which, if you are a person of faith, is your greatest God-given talent. And if you don't subscribe this to being a God-given talent, it is our most powerful tool, our capacity to choose our behaviors. I think there are 4 things that cause people to choose to change. I'm quickly going to plagiarize the first 3 off that other list. Here are the 4 things that cause people to choose to change: a near-death experience, a life-changing event, a religious experience, or the influence of another human being. And Anton, that's where authentic leadership lies. Influencing other people, not through what we say, but through what we do. Influencing them to choose change. And then, Anton, it becomes permanent. It becomes intrinsic. And then we don't have to rely on motivational hype, but people fundamentally change at their core. Is it an art or a science? It's a bit of a combination of both. Learn the science and then demonstrate the art. Anton.
Brilliant. Thank you for taking us back and sort of establishing the foundation there. So since you mentioned that it is a bit of both, let me kind of take you back to the science piece. So I guess every organization would have its processes, tools that can be applied. And of course, it does come down to a personal touch. But in terms of the science component on the engagement, how do the policies, procedures, and the framework that organizations have ensure that people are actually engaged?
Anton, I think we must differentiate there a little bit. I would prefer to say that those policies, rules, and procedures are the frameworks that drive the way that people behave in the workplace, and the framework that frames what we aspire the culture to look like. So let's say that the policies, rules, and procedures define what good would look like if we were demonstrating excellence in the workplace. So if that's the case, then those policies, rules, or procedures don't directly influence whether employees are engaged or not. They become the measure by which we can determine whether people are engaged or not. Let me explain. If we were to assess compliance and execution in terms of policies, rules, and procedures, the frequency with which individuals demonstrate the right behaviors in the workplace, that defines the extent to which they are engaged. How do we get them engaged? Well, we have to come up with a meaningful, compelling call to action. Let me unpack that briefly. Anton, a number of years ago, I worked extensively in the UK over a period of about 18 months or so. I continued to work with organizations in the UK. In fact, just hardly an hour before we came online now, I was just wrapping up a session with a group in the UK called MD2MD, a managing directors network. There is another such group that used to be called ACE, the Academy of Chief Executives. And over a period of 18 months or so, I worked extensively with the Academy of Chief Executives. At least on a monthly basis, I would be in the UK working with a group of senior leaders. These are executive C-suite leaders. And I would work with a group of anywhere between 8 and a dozen to 15 leaders at a time, and I did that multiple times over. Here is my point. Those people all come from executive positions within large corporations. So they are very representative of what's happening out in the workplace.
Sure.
When speaking to them about employee engagement, I would start a work session by asking them to do a little activity. I would ask them to each write down the skeleton framework by means of a few bullet points, 3 to 5 bullets, of what their call to action is. With other words, if I took all of their employees and put them in a big room or a stadium, put the CEO in the front of the room, and asked him or her to call their people to action. With other words, to say to them, come along, come with us on this journey. Let's do more with less. Let's demonstrate that we are truly engaged. Let's deliver on our strategic objectives, and let's become the best possible place to work. I ask these executives, jot down the 3 to 5 key bullets that they would communicate to people. Anton, here's the funny thing. Almost without fail, those bullet points on their lists had to do with the organization or its shareholders. With other words, those leaders were telling me the call to action to get employees to do more with less, to execute their job in a way that makes it look like they co-own the organization. Those leaders would tell me that the call to action are things like increased revenue, profit, customer traction, delivery, shareholder return. And the truth is, Anton, not one of those things compel people to truly want to put more skin in the game. I'll wrap this piece with a quick insight. Professor David Graeber from the London School of Economics published a book 2 or 3 years ago called Unbulldust Jobs. Okay, Anton, I'm lying. That's not the title of the job. He used the real word for bull dust. I'm just using the alternative here to be polite. And the book was called Unbulldust Jobs. David Graeber, a respected academic, did exhaustive research and proved empirically that somewhere north of 85% of people don't like their jobs, that they do their jobs almost like King Sisyphus of Greek mythology, where they roll a boulder up a hill every day, only to have to do that for all of eternity. And every morning when they arrive back, they find the boulder has rolled down to the bottom again. And David Graeber's conclusion was that the vast majority of people, regardless of the level of seniority, feel like that about their jobs. It is an ongoing, never-ending rolling the boulder up the hill without purpose and meaning. David Graeber came out and said, there are only 2 ways to unbulldust your job. Figure out how doing your job makes the world better, or figure out how you doing your job benefits other people. And David Graeber says if you can answer one of those 2 questions, your job then becomes more meaningful. Now, Anton, I have a lot more behind that. We can unpack that in a minute or 2, but therein lies the truth. Getting people to be engaged has got nothing to do with organizational goals or strategy or shareholder desires. Employee engagement has to do with a call to action that is intrinsic, that shows the individual how they can benefit themselves by being more engaged. And Anton, when we are able to do that, give them a compelling reason that they believe, because no one believes those calls to action about customer retention, delivery, or shareholder returns. People smile and nod at that, but they don't buy it. We have to give them a compelling call to action. And that call to action is how doing their job can help others or benefit the world. More about that perhaps later. Anton, back at you.
Very, very pertinent, yet an interesting observation that it's nothing to do with the shareholder values, it's nothing to do with the bottom lines, but it is to do with individuals. So I do understand that organizations would need to do, or leadership would be required to do certain level of input or drive in order to create that engagement. But you did mention that it is to do with an individual, it has to come from within. Here is my question for you, and maybe you can expand on that or unpack it.
Anton, will you remember that question for 1 minute?
Yep.
I just have to back us up briefly so that I can just contextualize what I said and what you've just said, because between us, we've just made it sound like execution of strategy, delivering of objectives, and shareholder value, customer experience. I've just made it sound like those things are not important. And just to contextualize, those are the end outcomes that we strive for. That's what we want to achieve. What I'm saying is those in and of themselves are not a believable intrinsic call to action. So here's what I say. My thesis is, if we can give people an intrinsic call to action that is believable and plausible, that will cause them to be more engaged in the execution of their job, to deliver meaningfully what's expected of them, then, Anton, and herein lies the key. Shareholder return, customer growth and retention, bottom line performance, those things become the unintended consequence of improved employee engagement. So the end outcome is to achieve those strategic objectives. But the call to action and the lubrication to make it happen are not those things. Those have to become the unintended consequences, so that when people, for the right reason, become engaged, that then we will see an unintended upswing in all of those measures. Now back to your question, Anton.
Right. So on that note, that call to action, and I want to just pick on that, Steph. In that call to action, and I'm looking at organizations, and in every organization, and I guess individuals would need to play a role, not just the leadership, right? And as an individual, you do need to make a conscious change to engage. And this is where the trick is, or this is where I find the challenging bit, because there are individuals within organizations who are quite happy to come in, do their job on a day-to-day basis for the money that they get paid, say thank you very much, and go home. They don't want to get involved in the engagement. They don't want to get involved in doing anything else. They come, they do their job, and they go, and they're quite happy with that. Now, how does the leadership and the call to action come into play when it comes to dealing with these kind of individuals within the organization? How do they deal with that?
Anton, have you ever watched an American military-themed movie, yes or no?
Yes.
Have you ever seen the subordinate say to the commander, permission to speak freely, please?
Every now and then, yes.
So now, Anton, I'm asking you permission to speak freely, please, sir.
Yes, please, go right ahead, soldier.
Anton, here's the problem. The response to what you've just asked me exceeds the available time that we have left here today to speak. So the response to this question is going to be quite extended. But I will refer back to you every now and then just so that we can see that we stay on track. But what you've just asked is a complex question. Let me rephrase the question as I understand it so that we can make sure that I answer the right thing. The question is, what is a compelling call to action that will cause people to demonstrate discretionary effort in the workplace? That's the question. The answer is, Anton, it has got nothing to do with the organization or with work. Here's a statement of truth in my perception. Anton, I have worked with hundreds of organizations on 5 continents. I have worked in the boardrooms of some of the most prestigious organizations in the world. My perception, even though anecdotal, is validated by vast exposure. Anton, I believe that most people don't really care about the organization's end objectives. Most leaders don't really care about the organization's end objectives. Most executive leaders don't care, first and foremost, about the organization's end objectives. I believe we all care about something else, Anton. Anton, I think we all care about surviving. I think we all care about living a meaningful life. I think we share a human condition that we want our lives to matter. This is a universal human condition. We want to create something bigger than ourselves. We want to do something meaningful. We want to be remembered. One day we want to be able to step back and say, look, I helped to build that. I laid those bricks. Now that, Anton, is universal. And if someone agrees with my thesis that that is universal, then that becomes the starting point of employee engagement. So now let me quickly give this some credibility, if I may. I quoted David Graeber, who said, all jobs are bulldust. The doers of all jobs feel that they are just rolling a boulder up the hill until they can choose or understand one of two things: how they benefit the world or other people. I want to say that David Graeber was not coming up with a new insight there. He was just quoting an existential truth. He was quoting a universal principle. The academic prior to him who really manifested that was Viktor Frankl, the concentration camp survivor, the psychiatrist who went on to write the book Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, who became the father of existential psychology. Viktor Frankl, a 6-year survivor of the concentration camps, as a psychiatrist, found himself in the camps, not practicing as a psychiatrist, but working as a slave, found himself in an environment where people either gave up or clung to life. And Viktor Frankl found that those people that clung to life, in spite of their environment, were the people who had some deeper underlying purpose or meaning for their lives. So Frankl created existential psychology, the movement of existential psychology, based on the building stone, the cornerstone that, and I quote him exactly, our primary motivational drive is the pursuit of purpose and meaning. Anton, if that is true, then no call to action for the achievement of strategic objectives will intrinsically motivate people. If Frankl is true, and I believe he was, then what we have to do is show people how doing their work can be meaningful. How do we do that? I'm quickly going to introduce you to three new concepts. Anton, I think we all have something called our life score. It's how our life is going. We unconsciously tally up our life score every day while we are stuck in the traffic, or with the traffic as a metaphor, while we are homeschooling our kids, or sitting in a boring Zoom meeting, or when we just contemplate life. And what we're doing is we are putting in a nutshell how we feel about the current status of our life. I've created a scoring system on a scale of 1 to 10 for that. I have surveyed, so this is not research, this is anecdotal. I have surveyed hundreds of thousands of people and asked them amongst various categories to quantify how they feel their life is going at this time on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, it sucks. 5 is getting by. 8 is good enough. 10 is so good they should be making a documentary of your life. Anton, I do not have the time yet today to drill into the detail. I'm just going to make the assertion. And if any of your participants today or viewers of the video later would like some evidence, look me up. I will present you with evidence. Across hundreds of thousands of people on 5 continents, across all levels of employment, the average life score is between 5 and 6. Anton, here's the problem. If your life score is between 5 and 6, with other words, you are hardly getting by, then you are not able to demonstrate excellence in the workplace, even if you tried. So before anyone can become more engaged at work, they have to improve their life score. I believe that what employers have to do is enable their people to improve their life score through their work. And if they can do that, people will be demonstrating discretionary effort, not in the pursuit of organizational objectives, but in the pursuit of improving our life score, which is our most important quest in life. How do you do that? Well, let me introduce you to another concept quickly. Anton, while I know that there are religions and beliefs that cause some people to have objection to blood transfusion or organ donating, with respect to that, just as a metaphor, I'm going to quickly ask you, Anton, do you have kidneys?
Absolutely.
Anton, do you, religious objection aside, if you had any, do you know people that you care about so much that if they needed, you would give them a kidney?
Yep.
Anton, do you know anyone that you care about so much that if they needed both your kidneys, you would give them both today?
Yeah, one. Sure.
I will call that person your kidney recipient. We need to help employees to understand that they do not do their jobs because of shareholder return or customer retention. They do their jobs for the benefit of their life score and their kidney recipients. Most people go home empty with nothing left to give at the end of a workday. Anton, I'm nearly through with this long permission to speak saga. I believe there are three things, Anton, three things that most predominantly influence your life score. Your relationship with God or the universe. Pick one or pick both. Your relationship with your kidney recipients. And your relationship with your people, the people at work. Of those three, the one that has got the biggest disproportionate impact on your life score are your relationships at work. Because Anton, quite frankly, when your job sucks, your life sucks. And when your job is going well, your life goes well. So now we are starting to get towards the whole crux of the matter. What is a compelling call to action for me to be more invested in my job? The improvement of my life score and the improvement of the life scores of my kidney recipients. How do I do that? Easy. I improve circumstances in the workplace by doing my job better, by not walking past something that is not the way that it should be and saying nothing about it, by contributing to the success of the organization, by demonstrating discretionary effort. Why? Because when I do that, I will go home less empty tonight. And when I go home less empty tonight, I have more left to give to my kidney recipients so that I can facilitate work-life integration. The key to unlocking a happy life is to be more involved at work, but not for the purpose of the work, for the purpose of improving my life score and improving the lives of my kidney recipients. So, Anton, doing my job well benefits other people because the co-laborer working right next to me, whether I'm on the production line in a factory or whether I'm in a boardroom, the person to my left and right are going home empty with nothing left to give if circumstances at work are not smooth. If I do my job better, I enable them to go home with more left to give, which improves their life score. So, Anton, I now have found a way that I can benefit other people by doing my job. And when I benefit other people by doing my job will no longer be, in David Graeber's words, bulldust. And it will add purpose and meaning to my life, because Viktor Frankl taught that if we commit ourselves to people other than ourselves, our lives have more purpose, which will internally motivate us. Anton, the answer to employee engagement has got nothing to do with strategy or profit. It has to do with improving the life scores of the people. And when we do that, everyone comes on board. Anton, I'm so sorry. One last thing in line with this in case we forget. Here is the best news of all, Anton. I have an opinion on this. I finished my master's degree in leadership when I was 40. There's a story behind how I came to go and do that degree, but we don't have the time for that now. I want to make 2 points in a non-egocentric way. The first is that when I graduated, they took my thesis and made it a prescribed work at the University of Johannesburg. But more importantly, my professor, Professor Davy Smith, quit his job as an academic and came to work for me to run my leadership programs with me and to develop my material with me. Anton, I am humbly trying to make this point.
Wow.
I believe I am onto something when I say this. I believe I am onto something. the call to getting people to do better work is to enable them to want to improve their life score. But Anton, what I'm going to say now is perhaps the most important part of our whole conversation this afternoon. Here is the good news that I learned while doing that master's in leadership. There is ample empirical evidence to prove. Listen up, Anton, this is important. You do not have to improve your life score for your life to be better. You just have to embark on a conscious journey of wanting to improve your life score, and it will improve the quality of your life. So, Anton, we do not first have to improve the life scores of our employees before they will be willing to become more engaged. We must help them to understand the reason for their behavior. We must help them to understand what motivates them. We must help them to become more conscious of wanting to improve their life score. And we must enable them with the framework within which they are able to improve their life score. And when they choose to go on that journey, they will, as an unintended consequence, improve their own quality of life, and they will become more engaged in the workplace. And I have evidence across hundreds of organizations that it works. Anton, thanks for the permission to speak so freely. Back at you.
It's beautifully brought out, and this is something that I will definitely dwell on for a long time to come. But you're right, it is a conscious change, and it is something that each individual needs to roll out within himself or herself. Leadership, as we know, is not just the senior leadership, right? And leadership comes at various levels within the organization. And I want to just dive into one particular area in terms of personalities of individuals. And how does the personalities play a role when it comes to driving that engagement, driving that the deliverable or the call to action, or as you say, life score? Because the compatibility of personalities matter. So as a leader, and you could be the kind of leader who is, empowering, who is egalitarian, if you wish, to be able to give me the freedom to work. Now, I could be the kind of individual who do not want that, but I want constantly to be told, to be given constant directions. And I'm not happy with somebody just letting me be. I'd like somebody to constantly be on my case and tell me what needs to be done. That's setting that tone. Or vice versa, right? But when those personalities are not compatible, then how does that whole sharing of building each other, the engagement, the life score, how does that work, Stef?
We don't have the time on the clock for the answer to this one. I'm going to give you a high level. I'm going to touch on a few high level things. I'll maybe even step over and show you a slide in a moment that I was not planning to send you. It's still lined up here on my computer in the studio because, as I said, I was just working with a group of leaders, with a group of MDs in the UK just before we came online. I think something that you said respectfully, Anton, is flawed. You said, what if you are the type of person who prefers for someone, I'm going to use a word, you did not use the word, to micromanage you, somebody to be on your case. Anton, respectfully, I think that is a flawed notion. I don't think there is anyone who prefers to be micromanaged rather than to be given some opportunity of autonomy. I think there are leaders who prefer to micromanage people and leaders who prefer not to micromanage people. But as recipients, except for the masochists among us, I don't think that there are people who prefer for someone to be on their case. People excel when you give them the opportunity to grow. I am quickly going to pull up a slide. which was not on the agenda. But if you give me 1 second, I can do it for you within just a sec. Now we have some camera trouble again. You know what? I'm not going to fix that. You're not going to see me for 1 second. Deal with that for 1 second. I'll keep on speaking so that you know I'm alive and here. I'm going to show you something quickly that will manifest what I'm saying. And the pictures are worth 1,000 words here. So I'm actually going to show you the pictures. So something else that Frankl said was this. I've just pushed the wrong button. Have I broken anything? Are we still live? Can you still see me there?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, definitely can see you.
So here's something else that Frankl said. Frankl said that you can unleash the potential of another human being through the mere act of believing in them. Anton, I am the product of that fact, that you can become more when someone believes in you. So here's the point. Sharon, one of our key account managers, received a delivery some time back of a pair of Brogue shoes that were delivered to the office. Is that displaying right way up for you? Can you see that the right way up? Can you read that or not?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay. So there was a handwritten card in the box with the shoes that said, thanks for shopping from us and so on and so on. But then the most remarkable thing was that in that delivery, there was a photograph of a guy. Now, I believe it's cut off now. You can't see the photograph of the guy. Am I correct? Anton, you muted?
No, you're right. I can't see the picture of the person.
That's such a pity. I'm going to do something about that as quickly as I can because it's worth it. It really is worth it. Assume that I know what I'm doing and give me some levity here and assume that I know what I'm doing. And if I don't know what I'm doing, then we'll both sink together. Okay. Here it is. Here it is. I believe now you will be able to see it. I believe now you will see it. You see the picture?
Can do. I made your shoes.
I think that Frankl was right. I think that that their potential can be unleashed if we, through the mere act of believing in them. And I believe truly that when we put, and I say this metaphorically, when we put their photo in the box, Anton, they do their best work. How do you get people? So my point, nobody wants to be micromanaged and nobody wants to have someone on their case all the time. There are leaders who micromanage people, but they should stop because they are never going to get results out of their people. The way to get results is to enable independence. The way to get results is to give people the autonomy that is necessary. So, to answer your question, what about those leaders who don't want to lead like that? Well, I don't think they have a place in the organization. And I think one of the things that needs to be done is that executive leadership, if they are serious about improving engagement at work, needs to educate their leaders. Now, you and I have this common friend, Nigel Risner, the zookeeper. Nigel helps teams and organizations to understand behavioral styles. But I think that with the right insight, we can convince many leaders to change the way that they behave towards their people, that they are able to empower and create autonomy. And when we do that, I think that people will liberate and that they will be more engaged in the workplace. So we've just put our finger on a fact here, Anton. There is no quick fix to this. This is not something that happens overnight. It's a journey and a process. But the alternative is for us to do nothing. And as an alternative, that is not an alternative. So let's not do nothing. Let's manage this. How do we manage it? We make our leaders aware of the power of their behavior, and we give our employees the opportunity to integrate their work and their life in the pursuit of improving their life score, which will also enable them to demonstrate greater effectiveness at work. Anton, the last few minutes here belong to you. I went on a bit here and there, so you can decide how you best want us to use these last few minutes.
Sure.
If you want to touch on how all of this came about, we can do that, but we can do whatever you want in these last few minutes.
Right, so thank you for that. So we are in conversation with Stef Du Plessis, an authority on employee engagement and workplace culture. He is one of only 31 recipients of the Global Speaking Fellow designation, of which only 3 are from Africa. And this is the highest earned accreditation in speaking. This has been an art designed to bring inspiration through the backstories of modern day icons. But Stef, coming back to you, thank you very much for that. But I am mindful of the time, and as you said, the last few minutes, I'm keen to sort of dig in to find out, how did you get into this? Do tell us that before we part ways this evening.
I'll strive for the 2.5-minute version here. Anton, my entire life has been a journey to bring me to this point. I believe firmly in that notion that life is a series of lessons that has to be lived to be understood. Anton, without going into any of the detail, I come from a reasonably complicated childhood. I went to 8 schools, being asked to leave most of them. I was a school dropout. At that time, there was conscription in South Africa, and there was compulsory military service. As a school dropout, my parents had immigrated just as I left school. They were out of the country. I was alone. I went to the army, had nowhere else to go, stayed there for a few years, was a slow starter. But I had been through all of that childhood up to that age of about 22, 23, 24. I had been exposed only to one way of thinking, to the framework of the type of people that I were raised with and the environment that I hung out with. And I only subscribed to the beliefs that were shared by those conservatives that I had been surrounded by. Anton, I was 26 years old when on a bus I accidentally met her. She had just graduated as a doctor from the most liberal university in South Africa. I was still in the army, involved in the 23-year war that we were fighting. When I met her, she was the first liberal person that I met in person. I had never previously met someone from the other side. Anton, when I met her, I started realizing that there is a different way of living, that there's a different way of thinking and behaving, that I can change my perceptions about stuff, that I can change the way I view the world. Anton, it started when I was 26 years old, when I met her the first time and I made a derogatory comment about someone else to her. And she asked me, "What did you think when you said that thing about that person?" And my own evolution started by considering the fact that I had never considered before. And that is that I have beliefs which manifest themselves to the world through my behaviors. And until that moment, it had been unconscious. I'm 60 now. So for the 34 years since then, I've been on a journey of trying to figure out how I can choose better beliefs, demonstrate better behaviors, demonstrate excellence in my everyday living. It has been a long and slow journey, but there have been people that have helped me along the way, like our mutual friend Nigel, like my business partner Steve, and like one of the most prominent speakers in America, who I heard speak once. It changed my life. Later we became friends, and I can now call him a friend, and I will close with that. It was something that an amazing man called W. Mitchell said in a presentation that I heard. Mitchell said, "Your life is where it is because of choices you made or because of choices you failed to make." I was 28 years old when I heard that, and I realized that I should stop blaming and take responsibility. I didn't not have an education because I had bad teachers or a miserable childhood. I had no education because I chose not to educate myself. When I made it a principle of my life to learn to make better choices and to choose better beliefs, slowly and over many years, stuff has slightly improved. I have a long way to go. But Zig Ziglar said, go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you will be able to see further. Anton, if I can grow a little bit more, I will grow a little bit more, and it will never stop. Thanks for having me today. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for having me in your series. It was great to spend some time with you. Thanks, Anton.
I'm lost for words. Certainly an hour of pure inspiration. Thank you so much for carving out a moment in your time from your busy schedule, which we know. But as all good things must come to an end, so does this conversation. So once again, thank you very much for spending the hour with us. So for everyone who joins in, do watch our social media spaces for the links to join in. This conversation will be up on our YouTube channel. Do visit, subscribe, hit that notification button, and stay updated. And remember to share. With this, I bid you a wonderful rest of the day. Stay safe, stay productive.
Bye-bye, everyone.